Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous et toutes. C'est un plaisir d'être ici aujourd'hui à Montréal. Certainly want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to you today about how New Brunswick is investing in innovation to rebuild our economy and engineer a future of prosperity for families and communities. I believe innovation is most often the product of strong partnerships and forward-thinking vision. And I believe the story of Canada is a story of partnerships, of working together to build vision, a dream that binds all of us together across our physical, geography, and cultural differences. Canadians have always been able to rally behind certain big ideas. Confederation, the railroad, les langues officielles, democracy, freedom. And we're incredibly fortunate to have been able to build what we have. Last week, I was in the Democratic Republic of Congo, attending the 14th Francophonie Summit along with Prime Minister Harper and Quebec Premier Pauline Marois. It was not an easy experience, but it was important for Canadians to be there to speak out against human rights violations and to sign a resolution condemning the violence and abuses of power in that country. The heartbreaking conditions that we saw there really reinforce the extraordinary progress and partnerships that we have built over the course of a relatively short history here in Canada. We built a country where public investments in key priorities and big ideas have laid the foundation for the private sector to compete, create jobs, build communities, and grow to become the very best in the world. Last month, I was in China, along with other premiers leading our provinces on a joint trade mission of the Council of Federation. I led 13 companies from across New Brunswick, and I believe that every Canadian, and especially every Canadian business person, should have the opportunity to see the changes that are happening in China today. We know that the rise in the Chinese middle class could bring endless opportunities. As Canada's most trade-oriented province, we recognize how important those opportunities are for the very future of our province. But we also recognize the tremendous pace of change that is transforming Chinese industry and global competition. And it's not just manufacturing where China has advantages. I was able to tour a research and development facility of a digital networking and telecommunications firm that really helped change my perspective. The firm's building was over 1 kilometer in length, and it housed 8,000 engineers. And of those 8,000 engineers, 80% of those engineers possessed at least a master's. So how do we compete on that type of scope? The experience has certainly made me realize more than ever before that prosperity is not a right that we can take for granted. Well, in New Brunswick, we've never been the biggest dog in the fight anyway. We've always had to compete in markets much bigger than our own just to survive. When you're in a province of our size, you can't afford to wait around for the next big idea to jump on board. If you do, it's already too late. You need to get there first. And when you do, You need to be better than the next guy that arrives, and the one after that, and the one after that. At our size, New Brunswick can't afford to be average. And if we look at our great country of Canada in the global context, Canada can't afford to be average either. That's why New Brunswick has made investments necessary to become the first province or state in North America to be fully wired for broadband coverage. Investments in smart infrastructure and in education and training has enabled our information and telecommunications sector to grow to include more than 650 companies that employ 30,000 New Brunswickers. It's an industry that has grown larger than our province's primary and traditional employment sectors. And ICT has been identified as one of 6 key sectors in New Brunswick for our new economic development strategy. The sector is now worth about $2.1 billion annually in New Brunswick, and we believe that we've only scratched the very surface. In New Brunswick, we're home to the biggest tech deal of the year for the past 2 years running, according to Canada's Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. 2 years ago, the biggest deal in the country was Radian 6, which sold to Salesforce for over $300 million. The sale netted more than 22 times the return for its investors. As Premier, that does make you smile. But I was smiling even wider in June when Salesforce announced that it was adding 300 new jobs in New Brunswick and continuing to grow its footprint at home. And in September, we learned that Q1 Labs' sale to IBM was Canada's biggest deal of this year. Reports have pegged the sale at around $650 million. And Q1 Labs continues to grow its presence in Fredericton and its research and development facilities, where it employs about 150 staff. In fact, last week, IBM unveiled a new suite of security-focused software for cloud computers, mobile devices, and big data initiatives. And Q1 Labs was instrumental in developing those products. Huge deals like these have the power to transform a province like New Brunswick for the better by creating a successful ecosystem of startups. It impacts the way governments look at innovative infrastructure and the way investors see the future. And it changes the dreams our children grow up dreaming. I used to refer to innovation as a rocket fuel for New Brunswick's economy. But after seeing the impact of deals like these, I believe it's something more. Today, I would say innovation is the ultimate renewable energy for our economy, and it all begins with education. We've made investments and changes to ensure our education system is the best it can be. In fact, we just signed a multi-million-dollar deal with schools in China to use New Brunswick's curriculum. New Brunswick's knowledge economy is driven by leading universities and colleges. They produce a dynamic workforce and groundbreaking ideas that have the potential to create quantum shifts in our economy and in our society. For example, Mount Allison University in Sackville was named Canada's #1 primarily undergraduate university again this year for a record 15th time by Maclean's magazine. L'Université de Moncton, un partenariat important à travers la francophonie internationale. The University of New Brunswick is Canada's oldest English-speaking university, and it's also one of the most forward-thinking. UNB is partnering with the private sector to drive growth through innovation. One of the partners is New Brunswick innovation visionary Jerry Pond. And as you all know, Jerry was honored as Angel of the Year at KPMG's first annual Canadian Startup Awards this past January. Jerry has partnered with UMB alumni Desh Despande to create the Pond Despande Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Mr. Despande is the co-chair of President Obama's National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Since graduating from UNB, he has gone on to take public 3 multi-billion-dollar companies in the United States. We're losing this. Just one second. Des and Jerry see universities as factories of ideas, and we share their vision. As a government, we believe that researchers and private sector investors are innovation experts, but we know that there are important roles for government to play in fostering a climate of innovation. Let's try this again. The New Brunswick Innovation Foundation provides seed funding to innovative startups. And we've already... Thank you. I got to tell you a story. I was in St. John, New Brunswick last night. And when I began to speak there, it was a wireless mic. And there must have been a bar a few blocks away that was playing country music at the time. And that's what came across. So 2 days in a row. The New Brunswick Innovation Foundation provides seed funding to innovative startups. And we've already spoken of some of the tremendous success stories today. But our entrepreneurs have told us there are important stages of development in private financing that is traditionally difficult to access in Atlantic Canada. And so in order to support startups with high growth potential when they need investments the most, we partnered with Nova Scotia to create the Atlantic Venture Capital Fund. Earlier this month, Prince Edward Island announced that it will become a partner in the fund as well, and we broke new ground as the first private sector partner also announced its participation. Technology Venture Corporation announced that it would invest $5 million in the fund, bringing the total to $37.5 million. We just recently announced that Patrick Keefe will move the fund to the next level by attracting new partners and by beginning to make investments in the new year. I don't want to go too far into Patrick's resume, but he has 15 years' experience in investment and entrepreneurship, and he got his MBA from Harvard and a master's in philosophy from Oxford. And with the input of many visionary business people in our province, we are also creating our province's first innovation strategy. We believe the framework for an innovation strategy for New Brunswick must include solutions to accelerate intellectual property development, encourage entrepreneurship, and create a province-wide network. More details will be announced in this year's speech from the throne, but I can tell you that the strategy will address ways to unleash innovation in the private sector, develop proactive policy and regulatory systems, spearhead continued improvement to government systems and processes, provide support to industry, and build the foundations necessary to act as a model user and early adopter of New Brunswick innovations. As a government, we know innovation is the key to rebuilding our economy and by providing better services to New Brunswickers. It's why we signed an agreement earlier this year with Siemens Canada to use smart grid technology to reduce and shift energy demand through technology and and education. The agreement created 40 jobs and will provide new opportunities for the ICT sector in New Brunswick. Through these partnerships, we are creating the climate for success in New Brunswick's knowledge economy. Our 10% income tax rate, which is tied for lowest in Canada along with Alberta and British Columbia, is a huge competitive advantage for companies who would rather spend their money in innovation rather than taxes. It's part of a competitive, low-cost environment that led KPMG to name New Brunswick as the most affordable place to do business in North America last year. It's a climate that has helped to attract companies that understand the importance of ICT, such as ING Direct. And I'm happy and certainly was very privileged to listen to Peter today. As Mayor Woodside will explain later on, the ICT sector is transforming our cities as well. I know Mayor Woodside will explain to you how Fredericton has driven growth in New Brunswick through the ICT sector. In fact, Fredericton, Moncton, and St. John have each been recognized as global intelligent communities through the New York University. Earlier this month, Moncton was named one of 5 Google e-towns in recognition of how Moncton's small business community is embracing the online economy. And growth isn't just happening in our cities. ExploreNet, which is a company that is based in rural New Brunswick in my own riding, is a Canadian leader in providing rural broadband access. In fact, ExploreNet has privately raised over $800 million to extend 4G rural broadband internet to millions of households who weren't served by traditional internet companies. Earlier this year, they successfully launched a rocket-powered satellite from Kazakhstan. ExploreNet was also part of our recent trade mission to China, where they could take the next step in growing a global business. These are the types of cutting-edge businesses anchoring a new generation of startups in New Brunswick. And we know the next crop is in good hands with organizations like Propel ICT, Tech Southeast, Atlantic GrowthWorks, and the New Brunswick Innovation Foundation. These organizations are ensuring that the startup culture continues to grow at the grassroots in our province. In closing, I believe that Canada must work together to build a strong vision for the future if we hope to reclaim our position as the world's leading source of new ideas and products. We must be willing to invest in smart infrastructure, in education, in training, and ultimately in ideas that can change the world. We must be willing to do what it takes to get that great idea first and to keep moving forward once we do. Thank you for your time. Congratulations again to the organization, to the vision, to the work that you are doing to bring Canada together, to put Canada on top again. Thank you.